I want to talk a little bit about acrylic paints and whether they're safe and non-toxic. Okay, so before we even begin to talk about paint toxicity, first we need to define what we mean by paint. What makes up paint? All paints consist of a pigment, which is the color, and a binder, and/or a vehicle. The binder is the substance that makes the pigment particles stick together when they're dry. The vehicle is the liquid that holds the pigment in suspension. Sometimes the vehicle is separate from the binder, sometimes it's one and the same substance. For example, in oil paints, the vehicle and the binder are one and the same. Drying vegetable oils, such as flax, also known as linseed, poppy, or walnut oil. Pigment is ground in oil to make paint, and it can be further diluted with oil to increase flow. Solvents, which don't have to be added but can be, such as turpentine or mineral spirits, can act as a vehicle, but they are not a binder. In watercolors and gouache, for example, the binders for the pigment is gum arabic, aka acacia gum. The vehicle is water, since they're water miscible or water mixable. When they dry, the water evaporates, and the paint film that's left is just the pigment and gum arabic. Acrylic paints contain the same pigments as any other paints, but their vehicle is acrylic polymer emulsion, and their binder is acrylic polymer. When they dry, the components of the vehicle evaporate, meaning that substances such as water, propylene glycol, ammonia, and formaldehyde, among others, are released into the air. So, do you think acrylic paints are safe and non-toxic? Think again. Did you know that what's sold in art supply stores as acrylic gesso primer isn't really gesso at all? It's actually an acrylic polymer emulsion that contains microplastics, which, we know, never fully break down, not to mention ammonia and formaldehyde, among other potentially toxic and even carcinogenic chemicals, such as benzene and phthalates, which you may have heard of. These are not disclosed on labels and are often protected as patented trade secrets. Despite this, acrylic paints and primers are often promoted as being non-toxic, even though they carry a warning that they should never be washed down into drains or sewer systems. In fact, acrylic paint waste is legally supposed to be disposed of in hazardous waste facilities. Surprisingly to the artist and consumer, some of the recent safety scares in acrylic paints were connected to products that were deceptively marketed as being safe or even green. Marketing plays on the water-based nature of acrylic formulations. However, these emulsions contain solvents, copolymers, inhibitors, catalysts. Most of these are actually quite toxic, especially with regular or long-term use. Also, most acrylic paints contain such small amounts of deionized water that calling them water-based is fairly inaccurate. It just sounds better and it reassures the consumers. Hydrophilic might actually be a better description for these complex mixes of semi-liquid plastic globules and copolymer solvents, since it indicates that the paint, or the medium, can be diluted with the addition of water. So, what is actually in acrylic paints and primers? Acrylic paint products can contain powerful toxins, such as glycol ether, plastic softeners, known as phthalates, concentrated volatile monomers, as well as formaldehyde, styrene, vinyl chloride, and benzene, which are all carcinogens. In addition to the cancer risks, vinyl chloride is known to cause liver damage, even from small exposures. Most artist acrylics also contain butyl acrylate with suspected strong kidney toxicity, and ethyl acrylate. Other common but frequently undisclosed chemicals found in acrylic paints include glycol ether, ammonia, hydroquinone, MEHQ or 4-methoxyphenol, and the polymerization catalyst triethylamine, which is known to cause eye damage in long exposures. The various fumes, SVOCs, or semi-volatile organic compounds, that may be emitted by drying acrylics are not really fully understood. One study identified the substances responsible for the smell of fresh acrylic paint for artists. The pungent odor could be traced back to a number of benzene derivatives, PAHs, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are found in coal and oil deposits, and acrylate monomers that either originate from paint thinners, from acrylic polymer dispersions, or are added as a plasticizer. Benzene derivatives and PAHs are known to cause liver and nerve damage and have been reported as potential carcinogens. Phthalates, plastic softeners, are thought to interfere with infant development through disruption of the hormonal systems, especially in low-dose exposures, and general liver toxicity is also suspected. While Europe is in the process of implementing regulations to limit phthalate exposure from plastics, along with new labeling requirements, most consumers of plastics or paints in the US are left oblivious to the presence of migrating phthalates, and there is currently no labeling requirement. Phthalates are key volume ingredients in many acrylic paint formulations, yet these are not only undeclared on labels or in safety data sheets, but are often protected as patented trade secrets. So, how long have acrylic paints been around? Time for a dark little history lesson. Acrylic paint wasn't invented until the 1940s, but acrylics owe their name to the discovery of acrylic acid in the mid-1800s. The word acrylic was first coined in 1843 for a chemical derivative of acrolein, which was named by a Swedish chemist a few years earlier in 1839. The word acrolein is a contraction of acrid, referring to its pungent smell, and oleum, referring to its oil-like consistency. Acrolein is a biocide, meaning a substance that destroys living things. Look it up. Chemists were aghast at the acrid stench emanating from a new fluid they had made, realized it was highly toxic, and decided there weren't any practical applications for it. Apparently, common sense was still in use in the 19th century. More than half a century went by, then in 1901, a German chemist named Otto Röhm saw the lucrative potential of acrylic acid and its derivatives to be polymerized and made into useful compounds, such as hard plastics. During World War I, acrolein was used as a chemical weapon, nerve gas. During the 1920s and 30s, Otto Röhm set up in business, embedded in Nazi Germany and also operating in New York. He secured dozens of patents for plastics and helped create what would become one of the largest multinational chemical operations in the world, which is today the Dow Chemical Company. So, Otto Röhm invented acrylic resin, which was quickly transformed into acrylic paint and later patented by his company, Röhm and Haas. In 1934, the first usable acrylic resin dispersion was developed by the German chemical company, BASF, the largest chemical producer in the world today, which incidentally also produced Zyklon B, the lethal cyanide gas used to kill prisoners in Nazi extermination camps during the Holocaust. The synthetic acrylic paint was first used in the 1940s. In 1947, Sam Golden invented a solution acrylic paint that was miscible with mineral spirits, not water, under the brand Magna Paint. He later founded Golden Artist Colors in 1980. Acrolein, acrylic acid, which is also prevalent in cigarette smoke, by the way, remains the essential base ingredient in the industrial production processes for, you guessed it, acrylic paints and plastics.